Anyways, 3, 2. That's getting clipped. That's getting clipped. Oh god. 3, 2, 1. Action. Hey guys, welcome back to Keeping It 99, the most edifying podcast in the world. I'm joined here today with Mark Habashi. Thank you, Mark, for coming onto the podcast.
I appreciate it, brother.
So can we just get a quick about you before we get this podcast started?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mark Habashi. I'm here at St. Philopateer Church down in Nashville. I've been serving here for about a year, give or take. I work at a tech startup called Service Titan, and you know, I might not look like it, but I'm Egyptian, ironically, and I'm half Egyptian, half Ethiopian. So that's kind of my background.
That's cool. It's a cool story. So I just want to talk a little bit about on this podcast about your tech sales, your business life, and kind of your spirituality, and kind of how you bridge those two things as a young individual who's done a lot in that industry. So my first question for you is, can you share a little bit about your story on how you got into the tech sales industry? Just kind of, you know, how you went from not doing anything to being 19 and being in tech sales.
Yeah, so it kind of all started when I was roughly 15, give or take. At that point in my life, I had a business of mine. It was what we call a marketing agency. I did something called B2B lead generation, and I would work with consulting companies, coaches online, other marketing agencies, and what I would do is I'd bring them leads pretty much, and I'd give them customers, through email, cold calling, whatever it may be. And I kind of learned that online as time progressed. And basically at that point in my life when, you're 15, 16, obviously you don't really know what you want to do in your life and your future and your career. So ironically, the way it kind of went and how I found about, sales and tech sales in general, I was scrolling through TikTok one day and I saw a post, and it was this guy. His name was like Tech Sales Tom or something like that. And he was like some influencer online. And, I didn't take it too seriously at the time. I saw it and I scrolled through and I'm like, I have no clue what that is. And I remember throughout the whole week, for like at least 3 days, man, that's all I saw on like your For You page. Is that what it's called? And, I would see it and I realized I was like, okay, well, this might be a sign, right? I was kind of thinking, I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. I think I was like a junior or something in high school. And obviously I was getting to the point where I had to know, what my career was, what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and what I enjoyed, right? So I looked at it and I was like, okay, cool. So why don't I just look it up on Google, YouTube, whatever. Let me see what this is about, right? Because I had some experience in sales and marketing, business, and I figured, okay, it's not going to hurt to just look at it, right? Went on, did my research, all that good stuff, and I was like, okay, cool, this seems cool. Maybe I could do something about this in the future, but still too early. I'm still a little skeptical. I didn't really know much about it. And to be honest, I think for like a week or maybe even 2 weeks, at the time I would really pray about it, and I honestly at the time I asked God for wisdom and discernment about what I wanted to do, because like I said, I was young, I was clueless. I didn't know anything. And I think, at the time I kept getting stuff on like YouTube and Instagram, and I didn't know if it was like, the algorithm, but but I would get stuff about it and I was like, okay, cool. Well, I know I'm probably going to be good at it, right? I have experience. I have a good opportunity to do it right after high school, right? I didn't necessarily need a degree because I had experience at the time. And I know if I network properly and I put myself in the right position online, I could probably get a good job and I could kind of go from there. And that's what I did. After I graduated, got my diploma, went on vacation over the summer with my family, and I came back, August or something along those lines, and I went job searching, all over LinkedIn. If you guys know about LinkedIn, it's a super great way to, connect with the right people and find jobs and all that kind of realm. And I, after I think a month and a half later, I got an offer for my current company, and I accepted it and I started. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I think you touched a little bit on, first off, it's a really good story, but you touched a little bit on the faith aspect with like praying for, like asking God for wisdom and discernment. And I think a lot of times, as Christians, as Coptic Christians, we kind of separate our like school/work life and then our like church life. So I think it's always important to remember that those two things need to be bridged. But going back to the subject of the tech sales industry, what exactly do you do in tech sales?
Yeah, so that's a very broad question in itself. But sales in total is, obviously, for the people that I go after, it's businesses, so it's B2B is what we call it. B2C is business to consumer, and that's like retail stores and all that good stuff. But B2B is, my company has a product and a service per se, and I'm selling it to other businesses, right? And pretty much the way that I sell is, generally speaking, at least with my product that we sell at my company, is it's pretty much a software for like blue collar companies and HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies, whatever it may be, and pretty much we're like a field management software. So we're able to have the company pretty much in essence manage all of their technicians out in the field and everything A to Z, right? And for a company that's maybe is an electrical company, right, for example, where everything is on pen and paper and everything is manual, they lose out a lot of time that they could spend with their family. They lose a lot of money, right, having to hire more people to deal with all of this manual labor, right? So I solve a problem in essence, right, and that's what sales is. But the whole tech aspect, the only difference is I'm selling, a virtual product. That's really it. But the best thing about tech is you get really good benefits. If you guys have seen like those TikToks of those people, I remember like a while ago they had like people from Twitter before the whole Elon Musk thing happened, and people were like, they'd work a few hours and it was like super flexible, pretty much in essence what it was, and that's kind of what it is. So you get good benefits. Pay is great. It's a good career in total if you perform, and that's what I really like about it.
So how do you kind of balance the need of, because obviously when you're in tech, you have to learn about tech. You have to know what you're doing. So how do you balance that need of learning about tech and then doing your school and then also, the sales? How do you kind of balance those three aspects of your life?
Yeah, so learning the tech isn't necessarily hard, but I think everyone has to realize like tech is evolving ever so slightly, right? So like, a few months ago or a year ago, like AI happened, right? And we even have that to an extent in our business now or in the company I work at, right? So you're always going to have something new every week, every month, whatever that may be, right? So you're always learning and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing, and, a lot of people that are in college and a lot of people that, have day-to-days where it's super busy, is time management, right? I think that's super essential. You have to be able to, biggest thing for me right now is time blocking my days. I know during this hour, this is what I'm going to do. During this day, this is what I'm going to do, right? So 100%, I think that's the biggest thing for sure. And if, time management in all aspects of your life can really help you. And especially when you get into a career and you get into college and all of that, I think it's very, very important that you know how to manage your time properly and use it efficiently.
And I think to further that time management, I think it doesn't just stop with academics or with career. I think it also kind of branches into spirituality. So moving into that topic, how has your cultural and spiritual background influenced the way you approach business and sales, if it has at all?
Yeah, so I think that's really, again, like a broad topic, but with sales, obviously, there's going to be, a lot of performance. That's how you're measured in your job, right? Your performance, the amount of deals I can bring to the company, whatever it may be, right? And with that, there's a lot of, truthfully, uncertainty, right? And you don't really know if this month, if I'm going to do good, if I'm going to do bad, if I'm going to do okay, right? And at the end of the day, the company doesn't really care because you have a goal, right? And if you don't hit that goal, you could get fired, right? And that's the truth. So with that comes, a lot of discernment, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of prayer, because the truth is when you're going through a very stressful period where maybe you're not having a good month, or maybe you're having a really good month, but maybe in a few months later, you don't know kind of what your future is, you got to have a lot of faith, because if you don't, man, you're going to be all over the place. So I think being really grounded in your spiritual life and your faith is especially key in sales, because it can get hard and stressful sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. So how do you do that on a day-to-day basis? How do you put that time aside? How do you make a conscious effort to kind of keep your spirituality first?
Yeah. So I think obviously it starts with prayer, right? Obviously, by your prayers morning, night, reading the Bible, it's again, the basic foundations really help at the end of the day, right? And like I like to think of, when the weekend comes and liturgy comes and service comes, and that's something a little more recent for me. I've only been, servant maybe, for a year now, give or take. And it honestly, it sounds weird, but it gives me a lot of relief and stress relief when I could come, on Friday today, we have Bible study, and I'm able to take my mind off of work and, teach about the Bible to my kids, then go after and play with them in the gym, or on Sunday school, teach them as well and go out with them and stuff like that, and having really good relationship with my kids and helping them strive and have a good relationship with God, right? So that for sure, I mean, I always look forward to stuff like that, and I think being in a good environment really does relieve stress, especially if it's coming from work, if it's coming from, college or whatever that may be in that essence, yeah.
Yeah, because I think you touch on it a little bit, how it's a stress relief, but I wouldn't even stop at stress relief. I would say, because when you come, like, the church is a hospital.
Right, it gives you a lot of peace.
Exactly, sure. It does give you peace. And it's a hospital, so it's for people who are sick, so it gives healing.
Right.
It relieves stress, it gives healing, it gives peace. And I think at the end of the day, especially within the Coptic community specifically, because it's such a tight-knit community, it also gives you a sense of almost like a purpose. And that leads me into my next question, which is, how do you find a sense of purpose and meaning in your work, kind of aligning it with your spiritual beliefs and your faith?
Yeah, so I think purpose, obviously, at the very beginning and at the very foundation of it comes within, right, obviously. But like, if we're talking in general, I think with kind of my job and my career in total, I think there's, within the community, there's a little stigma, right? There's, in essence, you know what I mean? It's like, he doesn't have like a regular career, because in honesty, it is unique, right? I don't personally know of anybody that has, a career like mine or whatever that may be in sales or whatever. So, but in essence of finding purpose in a lot of that, I mean, obviously my purpose is to get closer with God, right? And any way that I can get closer with God, whether that's, through work, through the church, through school or whatever that may be, absolutely, I want to try my best. But I think, again, that's a super broad topic that, there's so much aspects of your life that give you purpose. And I think work is really just one small piece of it, truthfully.
And I like what you said about how everything you do is to get closer to God. At the end of the day, everything we do should be for the glory of God. And I think a lot of times we lose sight of that. I know I do with school and things like that. But it's important to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, our 80 years or whatever it is here on earth is nothing compared to
eternal life. Yeah,
exactly. It's nothing. Yeah. It's just like it's like a trial run, Right.
It's a very small piece of the pie.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, if we don't choose God in this life, He's not going to force us to choose Him for eternity.
Right.
So
because He's merciful.
Exactly. And we have free will. So I think it's important to realize that we have to make God a priority now to make Him a priority in our eternal life. Like, you have to live heaven here on earth.
Yeah.
And I think that goes beyond just spirituality. Like you said, like, it touches on all your aspects of your life. You have to be Christ-like in everything you do.
And you know what, truthfully too, I mean, if for most people, with my age and, obviously I started, work and my career super early. I mean, I'm 19, I turned 19 19, 4 or 5 months ago. I mean, for someone that's, I'm not saying I'm mature by any means, right? I have a lot more wisdom that I can learn and whatnot, but I could see it being, and even, when I first started, I could see this being like a roadblock for me was, getting a career, and obviously, like, you make decent money and whatnot, for your age and all that. And I could see that being, like a roadblock for a lot of people starting out young. You may not know how to manage your money properly. You may not put God first when you have that money and whatnot. So I could see that 100% being a roadblock. So, but yeah, I know that's something in my life that I really try to prioritize and keep God ahead, especially, with finances and all that good stuff. So.
I think it's a very good point that you just bring up about finances and keeping God in mind, because I think a lot of times, I think the number one thing that people separate from God is money.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't seem like it's tied to God in any way except for tithing 10% or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's very important to realize that what you spend your money on has to glorify God. Absolutely. It's not just what you do for work or whatever. It's also what you put your time and your effort and your money towards. So I just wanted to ask you, as a young professional, this is kind of, we're moving away from the spirituality topic a little bit, but as a young professional, how have you kind of dealt with climbing the corporate ladder, if you will? Have you kind of dealt with this idea of corporate America and how kind of ruthless it is?
Yeah, I mean, man, it's not, obviously I'm still pretty new to it. I'm not a pro by any means or anything like that. But, I think...
So I said young professional.
I think the biggest thing for sure is people really underestimate how big networking is. Like, sure, your performance and work is, a really big aspect in terms of climbing the corporate ladder or whatever it may be. But truthfully, with a lot of these tech companies, I think if you guys hear about it in the news all the time, there's layoffs all the time. Like literally every day there's layoffs at any given company, right? Especially in tech. And, the biggest thing is even, statistically, I think right now we're on pace for 2024 to have more layoffs than 2023, ironically. It's crazy. But the biggest thing that really sets yourself apart is obviously your performance and work, right? But your network. Because truthfully, I mean, with a lot of these tech companies, I mean, even something as like software engineering, like I would say software engineering is even more saturated than like my job, right? Because there's so many people coming out of college and they're going into, software engineering job and have a degree, but where's, the experience? You have to have projects, you have to have this, you have to have that. But truthfully, it's about who you know, right? And it's super cliche. People say this all the time. It's about who you know, whatever. But it's the truth, because I honestly would have never got this job without networking with the right people, networking with the managers, networking with people on LinkedIn, getting referrals. That's big, man, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people apply for the same one job, right? And how are you going to stand out, right? Even if you have experience, there's people with years of experience that apply and get automatically rejected, right? So knowing the person in the company getting a referral, getting something along those lines is huge, honestly. And I think that's the biggest, quote, cheat code you can say to climbing tech or corporate America or whatever it may be, right? And truthfully too, I see this too. A lot of people, there's this kind of stigma with people that they think that you have to stay at a company for like 5 years and you have to work your way up and whatnot. But truthfully, that doesn't have to be the case. I've seen a lot of people switch jobs every year, every other year, every 2 years, whatever, because I think statistically, don't quote me on this, but I think there's a statistic out there where it's like, if you switch a job every year, you get a 20% increase in your salary or something like that versus staying at the job currently that you're at or whatever. So again, don't quote me, but I think it's something along those lines. But truthfully, I mean, you don't have to stay in one company and work your way up. You can always stay in one company, get experience, build a connection at another company, then get promoted via that way, right? So there's really so many ways of doing it, but I think networking is 100% the cheat code and the way to do it in corporate America or tech especially.
I want to talk a little bit about the switching companies thing, because I find it a very interesting argument for both sides. I think what you're saying about the pay increase is true. I don't know if it's 20%, but it is very true that switching jobs very frequently will cause a massive increase in income. But however, where I think that falls apart is as you get after the first 5 years. Because now you're looking for companies and they want people who are going to stay, because at the end of the day, a company, when they hire you, they're going to invest time and effort into you.
Right.
So I think it's great to go chase the bag. It's great to go get your money. But I think at the end of the day, companies value people who stay and who put work in for longer. Yeah. I think maybe in the short term, you're right that you get pay increases, but I think in the long term, it's better to stay, maybe not necessarily stay at the first company, but figure out what works for you and what's good for you, and stay there and put that effort, put that work in. I think it becomes more rewarding over time. Yeah. But definitely, I think it depends on who you are, what industry you're working in. It depends on a lot of other factors.
Yeah, and I think I agree to an extent, sure. Like, I was just going based off of the statistic, obviously.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Like, truthfully, let's say, for at least my industry, we have something called a rep view. And pretty much what that is it's kind of similar to like Indeed or Glassdoor or whatever, but it's specifically for sales and technology and tech, right? And the way it works is there's rankings for every single company that's, relatively big or whatnot. And they do it based off of like, I think 0 to 100. And you get rankings, you get, anonymous reviews, all that, just like Glassdoor and Indeed and all that, right? But for example, like I could get into a quote unquote decent company now, right? Like my company, I think it's pretty decent or whatnot. But truly, can I get into the top 10%, top 5%, you know, unicorn startup without some level of experience at a decent company first? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. And what I've noticed, crazy like enough, is like a lot of these really big like top 5% companies that are like unicorns, right? They don't even have like public applications. Like they don't have like an application where you can just go and you put your resume and you apply through like some type of system or website. It's not like that. It's about getting a referral within the company and going from that. Like at least that's what I've seen, right? And truthfully, with those really, really, really good companies that a lot of people want to be at, like, man, it's hard, and you're not going to be able to get a shot at that company without going into some average, quote unquote, or decent company first, getting your hands dirty, then going to that. Then you can obviously stay in that, and you know there's a reason why it's like a top 10% company or 5% company. So I think in that aspect, I agree for sure.
And I think the point or the reason why these, like you call like S tier companies, why they are the way they are, is because in order to anything in life, in order to keep it at such a high level, has to be very disciplined, has to be very like almost like picked out like by hand.
Yeah.
Even if you think about like your own personal life, like the things that you are the best at happen through hard work, discipline. You know, like you did things in a certain order, in a certain way, in order to get to that level.
Right.
And the same thing with those companies. So I think I definitely agree with you on that point. And I think as well, it was kind of like leading into my next question, it was about networking, and it's about specifically within, I know there's not many tech salespeople in the Orthodox community, but has having such a tight-knit Orthodox community helped you in any way in terms of networking?
Man, that's a good question. And to be truthfully honest, not really, no. Because like I said, I don't really know anybody that's, you know, in sales or tech sales specifically that I can necessarily network with and relate and whatnot. So majority of the people that I am networking with are, you know, online through LinkedIn and stuff like that, or even people that are within my company, right? Like I work from home, right? So I don't necessarily get to see people in front of me. So I get to reach out to them and put 15 minutes on their calendar and hop on a Zoom with them and talk with them and network with them and say, hey, do you have a friend or whatever that may be, right? So in terms of the Coptic community, unfortunately not. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it for sure, but I haven't gotten that chance just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically like with your industry, that might not be something necessarily applicable. But in general, I think my personal opinion is that it's the strongest community that we have.
Absolutely.
You know, there's always, and the best part is there's always people willing to help out, because at the end of the day, you share a common identity, a common goal, a common ideology. And, you know, that's what people look for. People look for community. People look for, like, to have a group that they belong to.
They relate to, yeah.
So I think, you know, that's always great to have as an Orthodox community. I know it doesn't really apply for you specifically, but I think in general it does. I can tell you for this podcast, like, half of the guests I'd say
majority of
the guests I've gotten
met from other people.
100%, 100%. Outside of the people from Atlanta, I've it's all met from other people. So that's kind of been a great help for me, and I think in general, it's a great help for others. But moving on, we're gonna talk a little bit more about you as an individual, and like, and we've been talking about you, but you get the point. Can you share a moment in your career where you felt a significant sense of accomplishment or fulfillment?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a really good story for this, actually. So I remember one of my, very first months, I think it was the very first month I started, and I started dialing on the phones and whatnot and looking for customers to book meetings for. Remember, I booked one of my first meetings and whatnot, and pretty much in essence, like full transparency, my job isn't to necessarily close deals and make revenue for the company. My job is to book meetings for the company so other people can close it. I'm not there yet. I don't have enough experience to close deals and stuff. But pretty much I remember my very first booked meeting I had. Turns out they actually bought the service or the product we have, which is like, only like maybe 10 or 20% of people that you book do end up doing that. So it was honestly luck. But I remember having a call with this guy. His name was James. Okay. And he was like a plumbing shop owner. He had like 3 technicians, and his wife was like the office manager or something like that. And I remember James and I had a conversation after, and it was like 20 minutes or something. And this was after they implemented the software, and they truly used it. And he was telling me, he was like, man, like, I thank you so much for calling me. And usually I don't answer people that call me because I have this false stigma that people that call me are like, call centers and, this stereotype, right? And he was like, thank you so much for calling me and having this book meeting, because I ended up saving so much time that, because the way he does accounting Friday nights and stuff like that, and it takes me like 3 or 4 hours extra a week Friday night. And he was telling me that he saves 3 or 4 hours every night that he can stay with his daughter and his wife, right? And that's, truthfully for me, that's so fulfilling to hear that I'm able to help another person get more time with their loved ones, right? Or save money or whatever that may be. And it's like, people don't really understand that. And they have this like false perception of salespeople, like, oh, like he's sleazy or lousy or whatever. But truthfully, I'm solving a pain that people really have, right? And to hear the excitement in his voice and him tell me that, I was really, really fulfilled and happy. I was like, wow, like my job is fulfilling in that aspect too, right? So that's kind of like the main story that I had in mind. So
it's a beautiful story, and I think that furthers the point you made earlier about like doing things for the glory of God,
right?
Because that's a way in how you use your job to glorify God by, helping someone in a positive way to spend more time like with their family and with the people around them.
Right.
Voice crack. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, that's a great story. And so I kind of wanted to, ask a follow-up question to that, which is, how do you see your future in tech sales, specifically in regards to helping other people within the Coptic community kind of go into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like I said, it's very, unique in its own aspect, right? And not many people really know about it. Like I said, I figured it out via TikTok, right? Like, what are the odds of that, right? So I think something like, this podcast, which is like a really good thing, and people watch this, right? You get, hundreds of views and stuff like that, not to,
thank you.
Not to stroke your ego or anything, but, I think when people see stuff like this and they hear, a unique career, a unique story and stuff, I think, my whole goal with something like this is I would love to help anyone that would be interested in something like this, right? And I think that's really the goal behind why I would even accept something like this as a podcast, right? So in that essence, obviously I really want to help people. I want to help them really understand, is this a career that you guys want to consider, right? Is it, what's kind of your priority with what career you want, right? If this is something you want, feel free to hit me up, right? I'll gladly help you. I'll tell you the pros, the cons, everything, right? So, but again, I think that really comes down to the people that, are watching, or the people that know me or whatnot. And, if they're interested, they're interested. I'd love to help them out. I think, like you said, we share, an identity, and we're able to relate in a really good way that I think it's very easy for me to help them in that aspect, right? So.
Yeah, and I was gonna further that and second that and say that, like in my own life, I see the same thing. Look, you're talking about the podcast, like the same thing with the podcast. How it's like I see this as a platform to put people like yourself and other inspiring people, so that other Coptic youth can see that and go, you know what, I can do that too. That can be me as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the most important thing, is to inspire others.
Right.
So I was kind of, what I was really going at is, are there any like things you will take professionally, or like start some sort of company or some sort of content creation or whatever for, try to get people like into tech sales in general, or just Coptic people, or not really? That was kind of where I was going with that question.
No, you're good. I mean, I considered like content creation on,
because you got really good podcast voice. You just sort of podcast, which is my personal opinion.
I considered, like LinkedIn content creation, because, I've been blessed to have, like my LinkedIn's pretty good and stuff. And I have a lot of people there that, I know and whatnot and all that good stuff. So, I mean, I considered it, but I don't know if I'd really want to go through the hassle. Like, just setting this up was a hassle. So it was something I'd have to consider.
It's so funny, because it used to be like, that used to be the only camera.
Yeah.
And it used to be just like a little, it wasn't even like a full stand. It was like a little, this stand, put like a table on it.
And you'd have like the mics you'd hold.
And it'd hold the mics.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
They don't know about that, bro.
I mean, a lot of them do.
Yeah, the old videos.
But now it's a lot bigger. Um, okay, anyways. Hey guys, welcome back to Keep It at 99, the most edifying podcast in the world, and welcome to season 3 of the podcast. Before today's episode, I have a special message and an opportunity for all of you guys to make a difference in someone's life. Recently, I have a mutual friend of mine whose mother passed away, and they have been living from house to house and haven't really been able to find a place to live. They also don't have a car. So it'd be great if you guys could pitch in a little bit to help this person get back on their feet so that they can get a car and start building their life back up again. The link to the GoFundMe is in the description. Please feel free to donate, and any donation is appreciated. Thank you guys very much, and enjoy the episode. I'm pausing on a podcast. Yeah. It's so funny. I always I had my dad on the podcast for the first time. Like, it's my most watched video, by the way.
No way.
And I had him on.
Your dad?
Yeah. It's at 2.2 kVs or something like that. I had him on, and I asked him at the end, how long do you think it was? He said, I don't know, 15 minutes. Why you stop me? I was like, Dad, it was 55. He was like, 55? It's so funny.
Yeah, it flies by when you have good conversations.
It does, of course. I mean, that's life in general. You know, you're like, you know, the best is when you're like in a parked car.
Yeah, dude, you can go hours, man.
Those conversations are great.
Woo.
Those are great. I'm trying to get my skills up to where I can have that in a room with extreme lighting and 4 cameras. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
or 3 cameras.
It makes you a little nervous at first, sure, but nothing.
Well, I've been doing this for 2 years, and it doesn't make me nervous. It's just like there's it's different, you know. Like, content creation is different than, like, you talk to me with me outside. It's not that I speak differently on the podcast. It's just like I feel like I'm a lot more. What's the word?
Reserved?
Yeah, I feel like I talk a lot less.
You 100% watch your words more and stuff like that.
Not just that, but I feel like, well, of course I do. But I just, I think I also I'm a lot more like, I ask a lot more questions on the podcast, whereas like outside of the podcast, I don't really ask questions.
Yeah, you just talk.
I answer questions. Like, I'm the exact opposite. So it's kind of funny, but I feel like I've learned a lot, like how to ask the right questions, how to kind of, I'm trying to learn a lot, like how to kind of, like continue a conversation. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes I'll get guests where they'll just answer the conversation. That's it. Like, answer a question. That's it.
And that's tough, man.
Yeah.
I can imagine that.
Let me tell you, priests, that's all they do.
Ooh.
Because the thing is, priests sees all this and they go into sermon mode.
Right.
And you can have a conversation.
You can't blame them though. You know?
I'm not blaming them.
Yeah,
Whoa.
No.
But it's like, it's so hard to have a conversation with someone that's just talking to you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like I've kind of like adopted this weird like half interview, half conversation style.
Yeah.
Where it's like the first 10 minutes are just straight questions, or the first 20 minutes straight questions, and then like if the guest is like giving it back, then it's okay, now we'll talk. But if they're not, it's like, okay, we'll just finish with some questions and like call it a day. But I don't even know how much of that, but that's probably gonna stay in. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not big on editing.
But you had more questions, you said?
Yeah, I was gonna go somewhere with the content creation thing. Oh, what's stopping you from doing content? Like why not? Other than the hassle.
The hassle.
That's it?
The hassle, I think.
I'm telling you, you gotta do it.
Oof. I mean, I can imagine
it takes a lot of my life, but like
time, which, man.
It takes a lot of time, but it's definitely very rewarding. Like we were talking a little bit about like inspiring others and stuff.
It's very like, man, what do they call it? It's like when you go to the gym and it's like for 6 months you don't see anything. But then after 6 months,
it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. I don't see
right,
nothing.
And you're like, ooh, I see a vein. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel
I've
like
seen
it's the same thing. It's like delayed gratification.
I've seen like 14 cents. Like,
like, I know you've done a million of these, and it's like now it's.
You're probably like 93, 94. I'll be at 100 by the end of the week.
Ooh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I need to figure out which one is the 100th one so I can like do something special for it.
Put on like an intro or something.
Well, yeah, like it'll be when I'm editing it. That's when I figure it out.
Right.
But like, yeah, just something. Be like, that's my 100th episode, guys. Or I filmed something. This is what I was thinking. And now we're talking like, now we're brainstorming on the podcast.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You see this book right here? I'll pull it up.
Dude, we read this.
The Economy of Salvation.
We read this. Well, I don't know if I read the whole thing.
Well, we're supposed to read it for a servants meeting. But anyways, I'm giving a talk. I think it's a diocese thing. Cool, but I'm giving a talk in on Tuesday at OCCM on this book.
Okay. In ATL, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. I think I'm coming here in the middle of the week. I finished 1 chapter and I have 9 pages of notes. I have to finish the rest of this. And I'm filming 6 podcasts. I got 2 exams on Tuesday. But I was thinking, as I'm going back to the 100th episode, I was thinking because I'm doing all this research on this book and I'm like doing crazy amounts of notes and stuff, obviously in a 30-minute presentation at OCCM, I can't even like barely touch the surface. Right, barely. Right. Like this book is way too deep. Yeah. I was thinking about doing like a deep dive and make that my 100th episode. it'd be a long one, and it'd be like really, like, it would just be me.
Yeah.
You know?
You could.
I'm doing it.
It's not a terrible idea.
Say less. I'm doing it.
You got my approval.
You heard it
dog.
here first.
You
This
got
is gonna
my
come
approval.
out. This is gonna come out before it, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Because let's see. I'm at the end of last season. I was at 80. I did 46 plus 35. That's how many?
Don't ask me. I'm not good at math. This is why I'm in sales.
It's 81. So 81. I did 4 last weekend. That's 85. 80. This would be 86. So then 87, 88. So I got a while to get 100. Yeah, I don't know why that was kind of like in
Hey,
numbers.
you still got a little while.
Yeah.
Close though. Close.
Anyways.
How are you able to see with that on, man? The low power mode.
Yeah, I realized I halfway, but I just ended up not asking any of those questions in the middle. It's kind of annoying.
If you want to click it real quick.
I mean, I don't really have any more questions to ask about that stuff. We kind of went off topic, but it's a good thing. This show. My last question for you is, I ask every guest this question. It's, who would you like to see on the podcast?
Yo, can't put me on the spot like this, bro.
This part normally does not go in, but if you give me a really good one, it'll go in.
And I think you got a lot of people that like, cause you interviewed half of Nashville. Like,
Okay, I interviewed like 6 people. Let's not.
So it's like,
I think by the end of this weekend, I'll have done 14 in Nashville total.
Really?
Out of 100K? I don't know how many people live here, bro.
Yeah, dude.
I saw a number. It's 3,000 new families in the last 3 months.
I believe it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's insane.
I believe it.
Like, that's like we don't even have 3,000 families in Atlanta.
It's big, bro.
Do we even have 1,000? I don't even know if we do.
I don't. With so many people here, it's like you don't even remember half of them, bro.
Half?
Not even half.
That's
Like
so funny.
I grew up at St. Shoy when I was younger, and I don't remember half the people, bro.
Bro, I don't know, but who is someone you'd want on? This is the last thing because this thing turned off, so I'll just use this camera.
Man, it's gonna be a cliche answer, but the Orthodox. You'd have to talk
See
in
what I
Arabic,
can do.
maybe.
I'll see what I can do. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, no,
I really want to
he's
get.
funny.
I really want to get one on.
If you like open him up, like he's not, I don't want to say reserved, but like if he doesn't really know you, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's anybody though, you know.
Yeah.
But
the thing is that it's not about whether they know me or not. It's
Right.
this. At the end of the day,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
The way Abunakaras is,
The way his jokes are, like
he's gonna
that ain't gonna fly on.
yeah, you're gonna ask a question. He's gonna look at you. This is the most iconic thing. He'll look down like this. He has glasses. He's gonna have his cross like this, and he's gonna answer the question. It's so specific. He's the only priest I've ever seen do it. Bro. It's so specific.
He's thinking.
Bro.
He's thinking.
During
he's
confession,
thinking.
every time I see him do that, I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's what you're about to get handed
Yeah.
to. One at Leia back home. When I used to confess to him, he would draw like icons and like
During the
and like
confession?
crosses the entire time. By the way, he should have been an artist, not a priest. Most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like he'll like draw like priest crosses. He'll like draw designs out. He has a ruler and everything, bro. He'll have a ruler and he'll sit there and he'll be like,
During confession.
I promise. It's the best thing ever, though.
Yeah, because he doesn't pay attention.
No, it's just like when
just
it's
slide
just
a
like
quick one in.
it's just like it's just like when like the sinful woman was at the feet of Christ,
Right.
and they were about to like stone her, and he's like drawing in the ground.
Wow.
Same idea.
Interesting.
That's deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll end on that. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Mark, for coming on the podcast.
I appreciate
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye.